So thank you and good afternoon right now, everybody. I would like to introduce you to our CharIN activities. I received this question already at our booth a couple of times. So what is CharIN manufacturing? Are you manufacturing EVSE? And actually we are enabling an ecosystem. So we are an association and I will guide you through today in this slot to our activities and also what we see as a potential perspective for the MENA region. So what is the overarching purpose? What is the goal? Why was CharIN founded? Basically it was back in 2015 clear that there will be a massive swap into electric vehicles, and by having that or by seeing that, of course, there was a new situation in the whole value chain. You need to consider to charge these vehicles, and you need to have them, in the best case, of course, CO2 neutral energy provided and charged. And this was exactly where actually minimum two main industries, the original automotive industry and the energy industry, which were till that point more or less independent from each other, seeing a need to cooperate and to solve challenges with the infrastructure and with the charging. And one of the first steps was actually to define requirements for a single solution for one global standard for a charging system called CCS, the Combined Charging System, where the industry agreed on certain requirement standards to move forward. Nowadays we see also megawatt charging system where the requirements was bundled out of CharIN, but I will come back a bit later to that. That was the original founding back in 2015. So what are we doing right now, or what is our main purpose in the association? So first of all, of course, we want to promote the system. As some of you may know, a couple of years back there was a very fragmented situation around the globe, which standard, which charging possibilities are in which country, and one of our overall scopes is to promote the CCS system and to gather industry commitment to that system. As with many standards, there is a standard, but there are movements and requirements with dynamics. So also the standard has some open white spots, and our scope is to fill these spots with industry requirements and also with agreement within the industry. Furthermore, our approach was right from the beginning to have we are founded in Germany actually, but the approach was directly together with our US colleagues to have a global standard. So the idea was from the beginning, we don't do this for Germany or for parts of Europe or for the US, we want to establish this globally. So these are our main goals and scopes so far. And then the question is, how are we doing that, or how can we support this ecosystem? And first of all, like with events with these ones or with events before, spread the word. So what is existing? What is the industry doing? We attended a lot of conferences. We established our own formats of conferences to inform and to educate governmental bodies, relevant stakeholders, different regions, and also, of course, we invited stakeholders which had a different opinion on charging standards, just to bundle these requirements, to bundle this information. Where are we doing this? This is normally, we have working groups, so-called focus groups, and they need to develop and specify the charging system further, because it was also clear that within the industry that this existing standard is okay for the rollout, but for future requirements, for future business models, I heard this morning a lot in the investor session what kind of business models are coming up, and a lot of these data within the business models can be transferred or are transferred during a charging process when you have a full lane of information from a grid up to a battery with all stakeholders and data points involved in between. And for that we have our working groups where experts in rounds from 20 up to 100, 120 people sitting together and really working and contributing on this standard. Then of course we were looking around the globe and doing a lot of strategic alliances, because in every country there are certain organizations with relations to the EV business, to the charging business, and we try to bundle these together. On the right side of this slide, you see our own brands like Testival or Academy. We learned after 1 or 2 years in operation that there needs to be, for example, a lot of educational work to be done, how to implement the standard, how to interpret also this standard, and to secure interoperability, which is the main key, that each car can talk to each charger and the other way around. We created also these so-called Testivals. I will show you some slides later, some pictures where basically vehicles like here and chargers like here are come together and are in 2-hour test sessions in a round-robin test tested. And the key idea is to share this information at the end, so that not only charger manufacturer 1 and OEM 2 has the information, what was okay, what was maybe wrong within the failure mode, so it's exchanged and open to everyone attending this festival. These are some of our activities. Then we created dashboards to make visible around the globe how many CCS stations are there. This is something you will find on our webpage. This is a very rough overview of our activities. Beside this, we are also going into projects, for example, PKI, public key infrastructure, what are requirements in these cybersecurity topics. When you see in a couple of years a lot of charging stations around the globe, you also have to consider how to make sure that if they get under attack, that this is not a hit to a critical infrastructure. So we are also talking with some groups and experts to governmental bodies around the globe on that. Then we were quite early in a stage where we said we need a CCS certification system somehow, and this is something which we released as a pilot project 3 months back, that there is a certification test case scenario that every EVSE manufacturer can on a free base evaluate their products against an unified industry agreed test spec of 200 test sets. What is the scope of the charging system itself? As I said, the CCS was the beginning. Now we are going into MCS, which will come to market with real products within the next months. So the launch of the MCS system will be during the EVS in Oslo in a couple of weeks. The CCS system right now has a coverage up to 450 kilowatt approximately, and it's normally the combined charging system with AC and DC in one plug. Then of course with the protocol comes a lot of possible extended functionality like plug and charge, billing possibilities and communication topics, and also from the panel before, it is ready, and also we are working on a lot of vehicle-to-grid, vehicle-to-home applications, also to have standards and bundled requirements for that. Then for us, as I said, it was clear to have a worldwide setup quite quickly when we started back in 2015. Like with every new association, if you are not if you are an association, you need member fundings, and of course if you have the attention and the idea to have a global setup quite quickly, you need to do it very balanced between costs and global setup, but we managed it quite good. You will see our setup a couple of slides later. And we said if we go globally, it's not only passenger cars. Of course, it was a start, but we very early started to look on commercial vehicles. We looked on two-wheelers, especially in Southeast Asia and in India. What is the use case there? What is the requirement there? And since 4 months right now, we are also starting own working groups for airplane applications and ship applications when it comes to charging. How we are organized looks like a very complex organigram, but it isn't. Basically, it's an association according to German law, means there is let's say the members are the more or less shareholders of the association, and then we have a steering committee giving guidance, advice and budget steering for the activities, and we have an executive board together with me and my team running the operational topics. Then we have the different focus group, as explained before. They are divided into technical topics like the connector. This is all related to power increase, cooling, cable setup. We have the infrastructure group. This is the customer view. So how is, for example, a parking space in the future looks like in Japan in comparison to the US or to Europe, and to bundle all this information to have the right setting for the charging infrastructure. We have the grid integration. This is the topic for the vehicle to home, vehicle to X applications. And then we have the conformance test and interoperability group. This is handling the CCS certification system. So basically they did it. So out of the member base, it was not like a consultant came and organized this process. The industry members itself developed together this process, and there were also tough fights how this should look like and how not. If you are doing this cross-industry, everyone has his own idea and maybe also agenda behind, but let's say CharIN is like a platform where you can agree on certain minimum requirements and levels, and this worked quite well. And then we have the communication group, mainly developing the data interface, the protocol further. And beside this, over the years, we have a lot of projects and task forces and cybersecurity groups, so we are quite flexible organization. Means a new challenge is coming up somewhere. We try to see if there's an industry interest to take this challenge and to find answers, and then we are on a very quick way to establish a working group of maybe minimum 4 or 5 experts around the globe. We are supporting them that they can meet under compliance accepted law and rules, and they will handle this. So this could be for a couple of weeks, this could be a couple of months, and some of these groups are involving and developing into full working groups, and this gives us a lot of flexibility. And then we also have some project like the Plug and Charge project or the Wirkkette Laden, very German name because it's a German funded project, where we gather also funding money from the governments to support these activities. This is the basic structure of our association. This was the start. On this slide, we had a head office and a registration in Berlin in Germany. We started with 12 members, mainly OEMs and EVSE manufacturers from Europe and the US. And that was, as I said, back in 2015. And now you can see on the slide the development. So after 1 year, we had 50 members already. We were setting up our Asian operations, and in the moment, we are close to 300 members, and members means all industrial companies. So we are an industrial alliance. We have cooperations with other associations, of course, which is very important, but the member base is an industrial member base along the whole value chain. For the Middle East, we started, I think, 6 months back to have first activities here in the GCC and in the MENA region. And this is one of our first events, of course, due to COVID, where we want to see if we will intensify our activities here and how the right setup will be. And we have our own offices around the globe, and yeah, therefore we have always a local contact for local specialties, but having this under a global umbrella. So some distribution of our membership base. Basically, we have core and regular members. It's a bit, or the main difference is if you want to attend only one group because we have one special topic you would like to focus on, then a regular membership is sufficient and you save some membership fees, or a core membership, you have access to all groups and all data. That's the basic difference. And then we have the whole value chain. So also the members are voted by the steering committee. That means everyone has to apply, and to keep a working modus in place, you need to have a certain contribution as well. Not financially, but you need to commit to work in a certain group and give your knowledge in. And to be not only in a, let's say, listener mode. And we did this over the whole value chain. So you see on this slide the distribution from grid operators, EMSP, ICT companies, EVSE manufacturers a lot, OEMs, CPOs, and of course the whole sub-supply and testing and standardization companies are part of it. This is our, let's say, managing director base. So I'm leading the global operations, and then we have in every of our office, we have a managing director and some support staff to organize the events, to support the working groups, to make sure that the communication flow is right. And then we are working also, like here in this region, when we go for a new region with so-called ambassadors, so to evaluate the market first to see, is there a certain interest? If there's a certain interest from industry, we also then looking for an own structure, but first of all, we are looking for, let's say, developing the market. I will not go through every detail, but some of the logos should be known to you. As I said, these are all industrial players from around the globe. Right now we have 142 core members. Maybe just one hint, like on this slide, it's not only energy and automotive industry and EVSE and plug supply, it's also what we call traditional and new industry. So I remember my first meeting with a couple of traditional OEMs and then Tesla and Lucid attending. This was a culture shock for everyone on the table, I would say it in that way. But now we are in a working mode really when I mean, everyone should have his own field of competitiveness and be the best to the customer, there's no doubt. But to agree on a minimum requirement on charging standards, it makes sense to put the creative heads together, and this is working quite well from my experience also on the energy, on the EVSE side, so not only on the OEM side. And this is certainly something which needs a lot of trust, and we managed to gain that trust with these companies in the first years of operation. We have a couple of supporters, so these are organization non-full members, but supporting the idea, very often used for governmental bodies which are not, let's say, in the mode to be a member and can work on it. And then of course we have MOUs with very important other organizations where we exchange an early stage information, like with ARERA, with the VDA, of course with the SAE and ISO, so that every lesson learned, for example, goes directly to the standard via our companies. We have liaison agreements with that. For FIA, or with the FIA, for example, for topics like how to make sure that in a Formula E coming up, charging could be happen. They have a complete different perspective on a charging standard, but it's quite good to, of course, gather also information out of this high-speed charging and to gain this information back to a serious production and to the battery makers and so on. As I said, we have our ambassadors with Ahmed here in GCC. He basically is one of the guys behind this summit here, and we are talking to the governmental bodies and see what guidance, what educational framework we can provide. As I said, the focus group, so we have really 250 member companies working in these working groups, and this I would say is the core of CharIN. So it's not like networking and having events, it's really like gathering the information, or make it easy. Don't fight at the standardization body because it takes a long time. Make your pre-alignment upfront the standardization body, because only with that solution you can keep the speed of industry growing, plus making sure that interoperability is happening when everyone is using the same protocol and the same type of charging system. Here you see some pictures from our latest festival, which was happened at Lucid facilities in Newark, California. We had like trucks, buses, one airplane, and roughly 20-25 pre-series EVs testing against approximately 25 chargers. And as I said before, it's 2-hour slots of testing, and then normally the car, for trucks it's a bit different, but normally the car is moving to the next charging station. Again, 2 hours of testing, and this over 3 days. And as I said, the collaboration part is the key in that case, that you open at the end of each session to everyone attending your lessons learned, and then these failures maybe your competitor have done, you don't have to do it again. You can put it into your implementation. And CharIN is like doing implementation guides after each festival. We learned this, so everyone please follow this installation and implementation of the software. This will make sure that every charger is working with every car basically. Of course, this can't be done for the next 10 years, but for the moment with seeing like every day new chargers company up, every at least half a year coming new OEMs, it's a very good and valid system to get to know each other and to get the test results done. But of course we are working also on a so-called CCTS system, like a black box I would call it, which you can use to simulate the car or the EVSE site to make it a bit more easy. Yeah, for the Middle East we had first digital sessions, and as I said, this event is one of our first let's say closer market looks here, and I guess we will have a couple of more events and also politic meetings in the next days and in the next months coming up to support also the infrastructure rollout here with our member base. Last slide, I see my time is over, is the academy. As I said, a lot of educational work can support this rollout of infrastructure, because not every company has a full set of engineers which can handle ISO 15118 implementation in different versions. So what we do is we take our expert out of our member base and make them in each region and in each key market to give trainings to other engineers and to have an educational framework with the rollout. And this is something also where we see a lot of increase in booking these kind of trainings, because a lot of companies also investing into that market right now or going with own business models in that market. And without having this training, only reading the standard could be tricky to understand every detail really, and that's why we founded also an academy supporting that. Thank you. So far, a small insight on our activities. Not sure if we have time for questions. Yeah, Abhilash.
Hi Andre, thank you for the presentation. The question is very simple. What are your plans for the Middle East, and how do you see the Middle East market evolving into these kind of requirements?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for the question. It's exactly why we are here, because we don't estimate to sit in the US or in Germany and to know this local market. That's why we are here and talking to stakeholders to see what is the requirement of this region. And what I learned at least is this region has in different areas different requirements, and to bundle these and to get and also to give support maybe to not make same mistakes like we did in other areas which maybe are already having, I don't know, 2,000, 3,000 charging spots, to avoid this failures which had been done there, and to have maybe a quicker rollout and a more interoperable rollout. This is exactly where we gather this information, giving that back to our members. Of course, looking also for members of the regions, because you need to have some local insights and people on ground here, and then to connect with the right people within CharIN, and then to see, I mean, we are flexible to maybe having a test event here as well in this region, to have educational trainings here, at least to support our members and the relevant stakeholders for their infrastructure decisions, basically.
Okay, you mentioned 3 categories of membership, which is the core members, the regular and associate. Where does government regulatory agencies of automotive industry belong to?
The difference between the membership?
Where can a government agency, which category does it belong or can register as a member of CharIN?
Sorry, I think...
In your presentation, you mentioned 3 categories.
Yes.
Of membership.
Yes.
Now, you did not highlight where government agencies that are dealing with EV industry can belong to. So my question is, if a government agency that is regulating EV value chain or EV ecosystem, which group of membership can it register CharIN?
So it's basically a decision from our articles of association, from our legal framework. Everyone can apply for each category. If you ask me what other parts of the world or what other associations or companies did, it's different. So some have some own regulations. They are not maybe allowed to participate, or they are only allowed as a supporter. Some want to, let's say, have a look for 1 year, so they go maybe for a regular membership because it's cheaper and not so many contribution expected. And then after 1 year they decide maybe to go out or to upgrade to a core membership. So between these categories, it's always it's a short application to the steering committee, and they vote and decide on that. So it's not fixed. Each category is for a different type of stakeholders. It's open.
Okay, the second question is, in your world view, Africa is not in the picture. What are the potentials of EV charging infrastructure for Africa? Thank you.
Yeah. So our idea is to have a closer look, of course, to Africa as well. I mean, I showed a slide when we started back in 2015. We only had a German office and looked on the European market. Then we went to the US, then we went to India, then we went to Korea. So there is a plan to have really a global setup, but we have to do this in relation to market status, market need, plus also industry interest, because we are doing this with our members, for our members. As soon as there's a certain, let's say, pull from the market, we will definitely be there very quickly and support the activities. Thank you.